6 weeks ago, the body of a young woman was found by a farmer in County Antrim. She was Inga Hauser, an 18-year-old student who travelled to Britain from Munich using an Interrail pass. That's a ticket to travel on virtually any train in Europe. Judging from the diary that was found among her belongings, she thoroughly enjoyed herself. But somehow things went wrong. Can you help tell us how and where? Our reconstruction begins just after she'd arrived in London at Easter time.
Here is a staff announcement for Mr. Jos McClenaghan.
Saturday, 2nd of April. Dear Mum and Dad, you dears, you probably could not imagine how much I like England. I would preferably stay a year longer. I am totally entranced by London. And you don't need to worry about me, for the people here are so lovable and so ready to help that I'm quite sure I shall never be short of money. See you soon. Happy Easter. Your Inga Maria.
During her trip, Inga kept notes in her diaries, and she wrote several postcards to friends and relatives.
Oxford, this is Oxford. Train at platform 2 is the 1346 to Banbury, Leamington Spa, Coventry.
Monday, 4th of April. Went to Oxford. Stayed at the youth hostel. Ate too much. Decided to go to Bath.
Inga phoned home regularly. She also took snapshots of the places she visited.
Tuesday, 5th of April. Going to Liverpool now. Took a short walk through Liverpool station region. Went on to Preston and from there to Inverness. Slept in the train. Dear Gabi, dear Christian, dear Martina. Morning has broken in Scotland. Breakfast in Inverness. Nice town. Have to see the Loch Ness Monster one day.
There are no more postcards after this, and this is her last photograph. But her diaries go on.
My journey has run without hitch so far, and it is really indescribably lovely. Unfortunately, my money is slowly running out.
Inga drew this sketch of someone on a train. Do you know who it is?
Going to Glasgow now. Snowy mountains. Wild landscape. Went from Glasgow to Ayr and from there to Stranraer to get over to Ireland. Saw the sea. Beautiful and mysterious. Wonder where I stay tonight. Need more money.
That was the last entry in her diary. These two passengers were boarding the ferry when they almost bumped into Inga. They remember following her onto the boat. Later, one of them saw Inga cross the lounge. But she was without her rucksack. Where was it? Had she left it with someone else? A few minutes afterwards, Inga was seen on deck. Again, she didn't have her rucksack. This was the last positive sighting that police have of Inga. The ferry, the Galloway Princess, docked at Larne shortly after 9:30 that evening. But the witnesses say Inga was not among the foot passengers who caught the train to Belfast. Were you on that train? If so, did you see Inga? More than 100 vehicles were on the ferry that night. So did someone give Inga a lift? And if so, who? And where did they go? Inga could have travelled anywhere in Ireland. For 2 weeks she disappeared. But up the coast from Larne, near Ballycastle, a woman like Inga was seen. Several people have told police that a girl was hitchhiking in the North Antrim area on Sunday, the 17th of April. If it wasn't Inga, do you know who it was? At the northeast tip of County Antrim is Ballypatrick Forest. And here, in a remote corner over a mile from the main road, a farmer was searching for his sheep. He'd spotted something in a small clearing and went back to have a look. Inga had been dead for several days. She had severe head injuries, but no motive has been established for her murder. On the Sunday, 3 days before Inga's body was found, 2 local people noticed a red car pull out behind them. It was travelling away from the point where Inga was later found. A man and a woman were in the car. The vehicle went down a no-through road. Who was in the car, and what were they doing in the forest? Above all, where had Inga been for the fortnight since she left the ferry on the 6th of April, till her body was discovered among the trees? Mr. Kasky, we're talking about events that happened after Easter and the 2 weeks immediately after that. It's a long time ago. Now, if anybody had seen Inga, why would they remember her?
She was a friendly and outgoing young girl and made friends easily. She liked England and the English people and took delight in telling people about this. If anyone met her in her travels throughout England and Scotland and she struck up conversation about this, we would be very pleased to hear from them, particularly if she imparted to them her plans when she was going to Ireland.
Now, the key does seem to be what happened at Larne, because that's where her letters home stopped, that's when her phone calls stopped, that's when the diary stops. A blank 2 weeks. So people on that boat presumably must hold the key to it.
Yes, I would make an appeal to the people on the boat. Anyone who made the crossing that night, who saw Inga, was she in anyone's company? Did they see her leave the boat, and again, was she in anyone's company? Or was she seen leaving Larne, and if so, by what means?
The motive. I know you don't know what it is, but you must have quite strong suspicions. What are they?
I believe the motive to be sexual, but I do believe that Inga did fight for her honour, and she died as a result of putting up a fight.
Well, there must be people watching who have some idea of where Inga was, what she was doing, or think they saw her, or who might have suspicions about who committed this crime. Do please call if you can help in any way. 01 811 8055. That's 01 811 8055. It's in the strictest confidence, and if you don't want to speak to a police officer, you can ask to talk to a BBC researcher if you prefer. You can also phone the Murder Incident Room at Ballycastle. That's on 02657 637 11. That's 02657, the code for Ballycastle, 637 11. Arrival and a tourist boom. In late July, thousands of visitors were in County Antrim, basking in the sunshine, playing golf, walking in the rolling hills, and visiting the Giant's Causeway. Now, if you were there on Friday, July the 28th, please watch what follows closely. You might help solve the murder of 13-year-old Darren Fawns.
But your sister gave me £4 for doing her lawn. And look, I fixed your heads as well. Thanks, Miss Simpson. And remember, if there's anything you ever need doing, just ask.
He never ever went to anybody and asked them for money for nothing. He always used to want to earn that money. And that was one of the main ways he done it, was doing gardening for them. He was very outgoing and friendly, very friendly. My mother sent him a T-shirt from England with dolphins on the front. And there was a pensioner that lives behind us, and she seen Dan on the T-shirt, and she liked it. So Dan came home, took it off, put on another T-shirt, and gave the pensioner a T-shirt he was wearing, the one with the dolphins.
That's the sort of boy he was. He always used to come up and say, do you want a cup of tea, Mummy? You know, and used to bring me a cup of tea up, or if I couldn't do something, I'll do that for you.
The other way. No, the other way. Oh, Darren, over a bit. No, the next ones. Yes, those.
Them? Oh, come on, Mum. I'd be embarrassed if you wore these in public. Look, these are much nicer.
Okay, bring them over.
On the evening of Friday, July the 28th, Darren and his mother went to the Castle Shopping Centre in Antrim town.
Sorry.
After I got the shoes, we put them in my steward's bag that I have my bingo board in, and he carried it up the shopping centre for me. Out to the arcade there, and I says, I'll take that, son, you all right? And he says, I'm okay, Mum. I says, well, I'll see you just after 10, between 10 and 10 past.
Thanks. See you, Tim.
Don't be late.
Right, PJ, what you doing?
Hey, Fonzie.
What you doing tonight, then?
Waiting on the bus to Belfast. Supposed to be here half an hour ago.
Can I have a smoke? Oh, come on, PJ, don't be stingy.
Police need help in tracing this boy who was hanging around with Darren.
He was standing looking around him and just looking about. He was roughly around the same age as Darren. Black hair, blackish clothes. And I've never really seen him before.
What about you, Fawns?
Oh, right, Fifth.
Here, was that your mummy I saw you with earlier on the shops?
Yep.
Darren seemed very happy the night I was talking to him. He was his chatty, usual, smiling self. So he was just as nice as he always has been to me.
Darren, or Fonzie to his friends, spent much of that afternoon and evening in the town's amusement arcade, known locally as the Pleasuredrome or Rollerdrome.
Grandad, I don't like this one.
Here, don't waste your money on that one. It's bust.
This was about half an hour before Darren was due to meet his mother.
Don't try any of them either. I've lost money in them. Here, wee fella, I'll show you the nudges you need. Okay, here we go. Right, let's start. That one. Okay, and again. Right, one of the placer. Right, just need to put more money in.
I didn't know Darren, but he seemed so kind and gentle. And him and Jonathan, my grandson, got on like a house on fire, and I felt quite free to leave him and go and have a cup of coffee.
There you go.
Thanks very much.
In the next half hour or so, Darren must have met somebody else. But who? His mother waited at the cab rank as agreed, but by 10 past 10, Darren still hadn't shown.
Look, maybe he's still at the Rollerdrome. Could you take me round there on the way round?
I can, surely, yes. All right.
I was worried. Because if he said he was going to be there, he would be there.
Yet 30 minutes later, as the Rollerdrome closed, Darren was seen leaving.
Right, Fawn, see you tomorrow.
Alright, that'll do.
Two boys, both roughly his age. Who were they? And where were they going? 5 days later, a mile from the town centre. A Belgian tourist searching for a ball found Darren lying in bushes between the golf course and a holiday caravan site. Darren had been struck on the head. Those two lads who left the Rollerdrome with him are obviously key witnesses. They're not suspects. We need them to come forward tonight urgently. And Mr. Kincaid, what else is there? I mean, you wanted a national appeal on this.
Yes, sir. Well, one of the important things is the caravan site. It's called the 6 Mile Water Caravan Park. The locals call it the Loch Shore Caravan Park. On the 20th to the 30th of July, there was a considerable amount of caravans and tents at that park. Many of the people there came from Great Britain, and Darren's body was found only a few yards away in a wood. Now, if you were there, I would ask you to please to call us at Antrim or call us here.
That's the very end of July, 28th,
28th to the 30th of July, yes. And you may have heard or seen something which to you is very insignificant, but could be important to us to find the killer.
So even if you don't think you saw anything related to this, you want them to call?
If you stayed at that caravan park, please call us.
Now, these are Darren's shoes, and they weren't found with his body. They were handed in to you. What's the significance of these, and how can viewers help?
Well, those shoes were recovered the day after we found Darren's body. And we would like to hear from anyone who saw those shoes between the 28th and the 30th of July in Antrim. They're a black size 9 Nike Air Max trainer with a very distinctive green stripe on them.
Now, you're not sure whether he was killed on the Friday night or the Saturday morning, and obviously you want people who might have seen him.
That's correct. We're unsure of the exact time of Darren's death, but we do know that 5 hours before he died, he did eat a meal, and that meal contained either pork or beef. Now, if we knew where he obtained that meal, it would give us the exact time of his death and give us more information about his movements. So if anyone saw Darren eating over the weekend that we're looking for the information, would you please contact us?
Okay, and particularly two people who wrote anonymous letters. We need to find out who you are. Our number to the studio is free. Please ring us if you know what happened that night. Please help however minor you think your information. You can call the police in Antrim direct. That's on 01232 259 659. It's a Belfast number, 01232 259 659.
It's sometimes surprising what you find out about people. This is the story of a well-liked man. Back in early December, he'd been out in Belfast city centre buying Christmas presents. It wasn't until next morning that anybody realised something terrible had happened.
Hello? You all right there?
On Tuesday the 3rd of December, Arthur Warrington McCauley, known to many of his friends as Warren, was found in Coles Alley in central Belfast shortly before 8 in the morning. Warren had suffered a fatal head injury and died 2 days later in hospital. He never regained consciousness.
Well, I first became acquainted with Warren nearly 30 years ago when both of us came to train here in Mugglemoor Abbey as nurses. In more recent years we worked together in the children's unit, children who had challenges in their lives. And he was known as a great confidant. People would have gone to him with their difficulties, and they always knew that they would get a kind response and good advice from Warren. That was a measure of the man, so it was.
Warren had a day off on Monday the 2nd of December and was seen by a neighbour leaving his house in Antrim, where he lived alone, shortly before 11 that morning. Some of his actions over the rest of the day are what you'd expect of a man devoted to his family and friends. Others have come as a surprise, even to those closest to him. By early afternoon, Warren was in central Belfast, where it was the first day of late-night Christmas shopping. He was wearing black shoes, dark trousers and a blue fleece top. Just before 2:30, Warren bought a gift from the body shop on Donegal Place.
Warren was a very kind, very generous person. Always remembered people's birthdays, remembered important occasions, and celebrated those by buying very appropriate presents.
But many of those who received Warren's gifts didn't know there was another side to his life. During the rest of the afternoon, he made several visits to locations popular with some gay men. Warren used an alias at these times, Aaron.
This was a side to his life that was unknown to us, but something that he obviously wanted to keep very much to himself.
One of the places Warren visited that afternoon was the public toilets on Arthur Lane. Shortly after 3:30, he left with an acquaintance whom police have eliminated from their inquiries. They walked around Donegal Square together before heading up Callender Street towards the Woolworths on Ann Street, where they parted shortly after 4 o'clock. Half an hour later, it had turned dark. CCTV cameras recorded Warren visiting the public toilets on Coles Alley, yards from where he was found the following morning. From then on, the trail runs cold. What we do know is that Warren had made plans to meet someone called Stevie or Paul at the Custom House Bar on Skipper Street at 8 o'clock, but he wasn't seen there. But at 9:10, a woman walking along Church Lane was startled by someone she assumed was drunk. It was Warren, and he lay in Coles Alley until he was found the following morning. About 20 minutes later, a shop assistant was heading home along Ann Street after finishing her shift.
Good night.
She saw two young men walking ahead of her, who recognised a couple emerging from the far end of Coles Alley from where Warren was lying.
What have you gone up to?
Were you any of these people, coming out from Coles Alley, walking down Ann Street, or in the group at the bandstand on Arthur Square? If so, police are desperate to hear from you. You may have vital clues that could help find Warren's attacker.
I think in a word, Warren is irreplaceable. He was such a talent and had such skill, such devotion and such loyalty to the children, to the family, to the families of those children and to his colleagues, that'll be a void that'll be extremely difficult to fill in.
Well, with me is Detective Superintendent Alan Mains of the Police Service of Northern Ireland and Ryan O'Neill of the Rainbow Project, which represents the gay community. Alan, do we know if Warren's homosexuality had anything to do with this murder?
Well, what I do know is that, first of all, the motive did not appear to be robbery, and secondly, with the people that I've sort of talked to, and that of the inquiry team, would suggest that Warren was quite cautious, and to the point where we know that he wouldn't have gone down the entry himself unless he was comfortable with the fact that he was down there with somebody. So I'm certainly keeping that very much open, but my inquiries are going down the road of that motive.
And then there's this window, isn't there, where we have no idea where he was between 5:30, what was it, 9:10?
Yeah, it's 10 past 9.
It's a complete blank then.
Complete blank. The trail goes cold for us. All day we've actually got Warren on camera. We know his movements. 5:30 on the 2nd, it just goes cold.
Now, Ryan, you're here to take calls from anyone, perhaps from the gay community, who doesn't feel particularly comfortable talking to the police. And if they want to remain anonymous, they can, can't they?
Can indeed, yes. We have a guarantee from the police service that any information received will be treated in the strictest confidence. Myself and my colleagues are certainly very pleased with the way the investigation has been handled, and that the police service are very aware of the situation that a gay man could find himself in when wanting to report such incidents.
Well, in terms of the situation that a gay man could find themselves in, I mean, Warren used an alias, didn't he, Aaron? Now, how common is it that someone would do that?
It can be quite common for people to use a false name, if you like, to protect their private life.
I mean, it's not that in any sense there's anything shady or untoward about either doing that or about Warren, is there?
Certainly not. It's just he wanted to protect his private life from other individuals.
OK, now, you've got new information tonight, haven't you, about this character called Stevie or Paul? We're not quite sure.
Yeah, Stevie or Paul, we go back to the 14th of November last year. The information that we would have now would suggest that Warren knew this chap, and indeed McKee's Dam near Hillsborough would have met him sometime just before the 14th of November. Warren himself described to the witness as a chap being 6 foot tall, sandy-coloured hair, in his mid-30s and good-looking. Now, we also know the additional information that we've now got that this chap lives somewhere in Belfast, near BBC or the just off Former Road in a fancy apartment. And we really are focusing our inquiries to this chap.
OK, well, call us here in the studio, or you can call the Rainbow Project. That's 02890 319 030, or call the Incident Room on 02890, again, 700 534.
People involved could now be anywhere. And those who know something may finally be prepared to talk. We're travelling back some 30 years to 1973, a time when Northern Ireland's troubles were only just past their peak and army patrols were on the lookout for anything suspicious.
It's a body. Go get the police.
Okay, you two come with me.
Brian, he was all right. He was like any other normal boy. He was tricky, yes, but he was lovable. He was the youngest of the family, and anything you asked him to do, of course, he always said no, Mum. But in the end, Brian always done what you asked.
There were 5 children in the family. Brian's brother Eddie's now in his late 40s and lives in England.
Brian was very petite, very small kid, very small build for a 10-year-old. Quite frail. It looked like, in fact, he didn't eat. He only ate junk food, I assume, like we all did.
He was so small, his charred and dismembered remains fitted easily into a Hessian sack. It soon became a very big inquiry.
I was in my bedroom at the time, and I realised there was something going on.
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. McDermott. Yeah. Could we come in, please?
I heard a lot of commotion going on downstairs, and a lot of screaming and crying and shouting. In the front room, there was a police constable with her arm around my mum. My dad was just sat in the chair, mortified. And I realised then it was bad news, that Brian probably wasn't coming home ever again.
Here's your toast, wee man.
Thanks, Mommy.
Sunday morning, and Brian was at home in Wells Street off the Lower Woodstock Road in East Belfast. Where are you going now?
I'm going to the park.
Put your jacket on. Here. Let me brush your hair. Don't be long. Your dinner's nearly ready.
Okay.
I looked out the window to see him going across the road, and I just saw his back, and that was the last time I saw him.
We know Brian went straight to Ormeau Park, where in the next hour and a half he was seen by several of his friends, all of them now middle-aged.
Hello, Brian. All right?
I was taking my dog Spot for a walk.
Where are you going? I'm going over to the bushes to build a hut. All right. Bye. Bye.
It's just a normal Sunday. Brian seemed his happy self, and there's nothing different.
But an hour later, Brian didn't seem his happy self at all. When another friend approached him, he wasn't in the mood for play.
Will you come over there and play in those swings with me?
Soon afterwards, although this may be unconnected, a man walking his dog saw several youths crowded round a fire. The boys were swearing heavily, and he thought that something sinister was going on. A blue chopper bike was lying in the grass. A few minutes on, and a teenager went past him on a blue chopper and was violently sick.
You all right? Are you okay? Want a taster?
Go look for him, will you, Eddie? Make sure he's all right.
All right. Come on, Charlie. All right, boys.
Brian! Brian! Brian!
I just stayed in to see if he'd come home. course, all that night, I kept my front door open, went outside to look for him, called his name, Brian.
Brian! Brian, come home, Brian!
Brian, come on home. But there was no signs of him or nothing. Somebody had took him away and just took the life out of him. How he suffered. He must have suffered. Wish I had him now.
DCI George Hamilton joins me now. George, it's a tragic case, this one. And it happened 30 years ago, so why are you bringing it to Crimewatch now?
Well, yes, this is the 30th anniversary of this crime. And what we want to do is to bring the people responsible to justice and also to provide closure for the family. We can only do this if people come forward with the information that I'm confident is out there.
Now, the key thing is information you want now, 30 years on, witnesses. We saw quite a few people there in that reconstruction in Ormo Park. It was what? It was the 2nd of September, last day of the school holidays, 1973. Let's talk about, first of all, about that group of boys.
Yes, the group of boys round the fire may be significant. What is significant is that they haven't come forward to the police, either the original investigation team or part of my review team. So we're keen to talk to them, if for no other reason, for elimination purposes.
There was something they said, wasn't it? Someone thinks they heard them say, "we jock."
Yes, this term, "we jock," now that may be significant. We know that Brian may have had still a Scottish accent. He came across from Scotland when he was 5 years old. That may be significant. There again, it may not. We need to talk to these people.
Of course, they may have nothing to do with it, may they?
Yes, that's right.
And then, of course, there was the boy who was seen racing along on his chopper, and then he was violently sick into the bin. Again, he might not have anything to do with it, but you still want to talk to him,
I still want to speak to him. In fact, there were other people in the park. There were people playing tennis. There were parents with children in the park, many of whom we know have not yet come forward to talk to the police. We want to speak to them because we believe that they may be able to give us vital information in relation to Brian's movements that could be very beneficial for the investigation.
And of course, they may not be in Belfast anymore. They could be anywhere.
No, there has been a large amount of people, especially in the 70s, who left Belfast and went to live in other parts of the United Kingdom. So that's why we're hoping that these people will take the opportunity of contacting us tonight to give whatever snippet of information they may have.
Okay, well look, you heard it there, your loyalties may have changed. There may have been reasons why 30 years ago you wouldn't talk to the police. You may talk to them now, or you might have talked to the police in the original investigation. The police who are looking at this now do want to talk to everyone who talked to the police before. You may be able to shed new light on the investigation. The number's 0500 600 600, or you can call the incident room on 02890 259 784. So what happened to Hugh Cameron?
Didn't you tell me they were very rare? They're a lovely board. Beautiful.
Marty, take a wee look down over there and see if that's what I think it is.
I hope that's not what you think it is, really do.
Hello, is that the Larne Police? We're here in Nachaboy Road and there's a body in the river.
You went out on the 19th of October for an evening out and he never returned. As the weeks went past, we were clutching at straws, really. I got a phone call to say that there was a body found in the Glens of Antrim. And at that point we didn't know, but it sounded very like Hugh. Hugh lived a very quiet life in Carrick. His three passions were motor scooters, supporting the football team in the running, and that was it. Every night he went out for a run. Hugh ran 30 marathons, and his latest charity was stillborn children. And he had booked to go to the Dublin Marathon, which would have been his 31st. And he never made it.
Nightlife is pub life in Carrickfergus, and there are many to choose from. Hugh rarely went to the Central Bar and didn't know many of the regulars, but a work friend, Marty, had suggested they meet there.
Cheers, love, thanks.
Many of the people who were around that night have taken part in this reconstruction.
Morning. How's it going? You well?
Very here you are, baby.
How's it going? This is Hugh.
All right.
A lot of people liked him. They all said Hugh was a nice guy and kind. He'd always be bantering and joking and generally keeping everyone going.
So we're heading to up this. Go over to Dobbins or Owney? Owney's for a bit of crack. Owney's for Owney's. All right, let's go.
I'm gonna get a taxi up that Pheasant Bar, right? I mean, I'll come to us. All right, fair enough, okay.
Come on, you, hurry up.
I'm coming.
Hugh drew a few pounds from a cash point in High Street. Then he and the others strode off to the Joymount Arms, a pub known locally as Oweney's. Again, it's a bar Hugh didn't normally go to.
Carlsberg. 4 pints of Carlsberg, pint of Guinness, please. Nice one. Thank you.
How long did you stay there for?
4 years.
Seriously?
4 years. Brilliant place.
He did all his travelling. He came home to Ireland to settle down from Australia, and that was his goal, to settle down and have children.
Hugh booked a taxi for later to take him home.
Name's Cameron. 12:30. No, what time do you close it? Close at 1. You close at 1, no, make it 1. Yeah. Where are you going to? Going to Henley. Nice. All right, cheers, mate, thanks.
Who's the bar playing up the stairs?
That's luscious.
Is that any good?
Yeah, all right.
Huh? How much are your tickets?
£3 each.
I'll give us 2. Me and Marty will be well into that.
Who's going up, eh?
You not going up, no?
No, mate, I'm going to sit here and drink McGuinness.
Let's go and get some meat.
Yeah, go next door. Chinese.
Fancy Chinese?
No, I mean, I'm gonna have my taxi booked for 1. So I'm sitting home.
No problem, man.
All right.
Yeah, no problem. Sure, we'll see you again.
Good to see you.
And
Yep.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Yep. Take it easy.
All the best.
All right.
All right. Cheers, now. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Taxi for Cameron.
Hugh wasn't known here at Oweney's, so maybe he just wasn't told that the taxi was there. Or perhaps he was in the backyard. At any rate, he didn't emerge, and eventually the cab left without him.
No worries.
Time now, please.
Some of the people you're watching now were here at the Joymount Arms that night. But we need to trace the others, especially those in the backyard where people go to make mobile phone calls. Did anyone see Hugh, or anyone with him? It looked like he was waiting for somebody. But maybe not. A few minutes later he was out at the front, and we don't know what happened after that. Did someone give him a lift? Where to? Did he upset someone? Why? Sometime after 4:30 in the morning he was stabbed, hit over the head and had his throat cut. The pathologist thought at least 2 killers were involved. There may be a clue in where he was dumped, most likely from the Capana Bridge, a remote spot on the Starbog Road.
Every day I see a runner, I think of Hugh. I see him running along the road. I see a man on a motor scooter, I think of Hugh. When I hear anyone talking about marathons, I think of Hugh. And I didn't realise how much I cared for him.
Well, Pat, given that this is Northern Ireland, one thing we didn't mention in the film is whether there's any paramilitary connection. He wasn't involved in anything like that, was he?
There's no evidence whatsoever that that this was a paramilitary murder, or B, that Hugh Cameron was involved in paramilitary activity of any kind, or indeed drug dealing, drug usage, or criminality of any kind whatsoever.
So what was the motive?
6 months into this inquiry, we do not know what the motive was. We don't know who killed Hugh Cameron, we don't know why they killed him, and we don't know where they killed him. What we do know is he came upon a brutal death. He had been savagely attacked, he'd been stabbed, he'd been bludgeoned, and I'm sorry to have to say that there is evidence to suggest that he was tortured prior to his death.
Well, you have got one very good clue, haven't you, which is paint that was found on his jumper.
We have paint retrieved from the rear of Hugh Cameron's jumper, which we believe is inextricably linked to the manner in which he met his death. It's a lilac-coloured paint, it's a vinyl silk emulsion, it's been applied with some force. In other words, something with that paint on it has hit Hugh Cameron hard, or Hugh Cameron has hit something painted that colour hard. By that I'm talking about potentially a wall, a radiator, a shelf, or some source of that.
And presumably, if say he hit a wall, for example, there would be blood stains on that wall.
The nature of Hugh Cameron's injuries are such that there's likely to be a significant amount of blood spilt, both in a room, if indeed that's what it was, on a wall of that colour, on the floor, was carpet changed, was a wall repainted, and indeed on the clothing of the person or the people who killed Hugh.
And in fact, he fought back against them, didn't he?
He
so
did.
he could have injured them.
There's clear evidence that he fought back, and the people who killed him may well have been carrying injuries around the 20th of October of last year.
And where his body was dumped, it's a pretty remote spot, isn't it?
Hugh was recovered from convenient to the Skye Bridge. However, we believe his body actually went into the water at Cabinet Bridge. It's some 7 miles northwest of Larne. It's very remote. We believe that whoever dumped his body there must have had a connection with that area, be it in their history or presently. We believe they must have been connected to that area.
Okay, well, there's one other thing as well. Is a lot of people who were at the pub that night, it was the Joymount Arms, wasn't it? A lot of people who came, who were in the pub that night were actually in our reconstruction, as we said, but there's still some people that the police still want to hear from. People who are in the yard, the beer garden at the back, or people who are out at the front. We still want to hear from you. Give the police a call. You know, everyone says that he was just a regular guy. Why on earth would someone want to kill him? Call us here in the studio or the instant room. That's on 02 828 272 266.
They want to know who killed Jos McLennon. With the help of his friends, we've pieced together the conversations and the events that led up to his death.
Jos was a man 65 years of age, and he had lived in this part of the country all of his life. He was a farmer, a very skilled farmer, and he was always in demand to help people out. Jos's favourite saying was, "I'll be with you in 5 minutes," and he always would have kept his word on that.
Okay then, Jock. Look, I'll be back for tea about 6, okay? I've just promised Billy that I'll go be over to his place in about 5 minutes to help him with the cow shed, okay?
Mind yourself.
For almost 20 years, Jos visited his friend, Jos McClenaghan. He's a frail man in his 80s with chronic chest problems, but Jos looked after him very well. He would have visited him every night and very often during the day as well. Jos would have done the shopping usually, and Jock did the cooking. The night that Jos was murdered, they had their favourite meal. That was minced potatoes and lots of gravy.
Josh, come on here.
Yeah,
Dinner's
right,
ready.
already.
Oh, it's all ready for you.
Oh, good. That was some job over at Billy's.
Did you get it all sorted out for him?
It'll take a bit more work tomorrow.
It's no weather to have a hole in the roof, Josh.
No, you're right there.
I'll tell you that.
In the meantime, enjoy the rest of the night, and especially have a great, great Easter. We'll see you straight after. From us all here. Night night, everybody. Night night.
It's over, Josh.
Yeah?
It goes off again.
Oh, God, I don't think I saw very much of that.
Didn't I? You must have been showing I.
Well, listen, I'll go. Good night to you.
I'll see you in the door.
Ah, no, don't bother. Sure, you're all right there. Okay, good night.
Good night, Josh.
Right.
What you doing now? Get down! All I want some money. Tell me where the money is.
I have no money.
Oh, you have money, all right.
No.
Where is it?
The only money I have is in my wallet.
Where's your wallet?
In my pocket.
Just do your total and you won't be hurt.
Picking on an old man. I'm having a,
Where's the rest
I'm
of
having
it?
a breath.
Where's the rest of it?
I'm having a breath. Get me my inhaler.
Where's your inhaler?
Over
Where is it?
Over on the television. On the television.
Yeah, ready? Right. I want the rest of the
I
money.
have no money in the house.
I'll find the money.
No money in the house.
Help me get a man. And I'm coming.
While Jock, the older man, fought for breath, Jos was fighting for his life. He'd been hit on the head.
What's wrong with him?
He's in trouble, he needs help.
Who is he? What's his name?
He's just my friend. What have you done to him?
Have you got a number or something? He's not well. We need to get him help.
I don't have a phone.
Jesus Christ. Right now, what's the quickest way back to Belfast?
Go down the lane, turn left and then right. Keep going.
Right, that's us. That's out of here. Come on. Go, go, go.
Jos. Are you okay, Jos? Jos?
Jock had hardly been out of his house in years, but now, without a phone, breathless, injured, and with his hands still tied behind his back, he had a long walk to summon help. Two miles away, a red car was noticed by a police patrol. Either the robbers were lost, or else this is a driver we now need to eliminate. Next to the lay-by is a field. Maybe the robbers knew the police had seen them. At any rate, they decided to dump the car. Perhaps someone drove out to collect them. Half an hour later, a mud-spattered black BMW with 3 men inside drove fast into Antrim's Rathenraw estate. Joss's farm has been abandoned, and the older man, Jock, has had to leave the home he'd lived in for 40 years. With Joss dead, locals gathered at this auction in Ballyclare as his lifetime's work went under the hammer.
Really, this whole community, the whole district, is very saddened by Joss's murder. It just didn't make sense at all.
Alan, you've put huge resources into this. I think you yourself have spent days and days at the scene of this crime, and you're now convinced there is a real local element to this in Antrim itself.
Well, yes, I think just in particular there had to be somebody from the criminal community within Antrim to actually take somebody up to that location and pinpoint the house or be part of that actual team. I'm convinced that somebody in the criminal community in Antrim is involved and knows something about it.
Now, there's a big reward the community's put up, £20,000. People in the criminal fraternity are going to be pretty tempted by that.
Well, it's the community way of saying, you know, this is what we want to do to help the police. This is how we can, our little bit, and it will tempt somebody, I have no doubt about that, it'll tempt somebody from the criminal community to come forward and give us information.
So you need names of people who are just suspected, you need, what, hearsay evidence, people who've heard things on the grapevine, what else do you need?
I want people to come forward and tell me, and tell the inquiry team, names, people they suspect, and let us be the deciding, you know, what we do with that information. Let us decide on that and see if we can put the jigsaw together.
And there may be people who have had contact with this gang, haven't quite realised what was behind it. Now, tell us about this cheque, for example. Somebody might have been offered this, maybe even accepted it in good faith, having no idea that a murder lay behind it.
Well, that's quite right. Behind that there, Joyce was carrying it that night, the night he was murdered. And what we believe is that that was taken with a lot of cash. Was somebody offered that in all good faith? Let us know. Contact the police.
Cheque to Jos McClenaghan, made out for £5,207.
That's right.
It's part of the peace dividend, in a way, sadly, ironically, that as the police and the army come off the streets, you're getting more offences against vulnerable people like this.
Well, you just need one of this type of crime, and it puts fear in the community. And this is just, I illustrate this before, I've had illustrated before, this is a crime against the people in the community far beyond Antrim, and that's why it's so important to get this team and catch them and bring them before the court.
OK, well, please help us any way you can. 0500 600 600.